Today on the Miniature Models Podcast, we're discussing Volume 1 of the new Lionel 2025 Anniversary Catalog. We have a great show ahead with some wonderful guests and interesting questions. All this and more. So get your ticket from the station, grab a seat, and make sure you don't miss the train. Board! Good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to episode 87 of the Miniature Models Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, John Schwartz, and with me as always are my fellow co-hosts, Matt R., Matt Z., and Johnny, the entire crew. Guys, how are we tonight?
Good to be back, man, and this is going to be an exciting show. We got so many burning questions that people want to ask, so I'm very happy for this one.
Yeah, likewise. I think it's going to be a great episode. I'm always excited to do these.
I am pumped up because there is something in this catalog that I've been waiting for a very long time. And I think some of you might know what that is, but I'm not going to say anything because, well, I'll make my comments when we get there. Yeah, super hyped for this.
It is going to be fantastic, and we couldn't have a catalog show without our resident guest host, Sid from Sid's Trains, joining us as well. How are you tonight, Sid?
I'm doing good. I'm always excited to be on these shows, and yeah, there's all kinds of cool questions to ask, and of course, it's the anniversary of our favorite model train company, so this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, indeed, and to reign in that anniversary is going to be our good friend Ryan from Lionel Trains. How are you tonight, sir? Thank you for being with us.
Very good. Excuse me. Very good. Great to be back.
It is good to have you back, sir. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. So tonight we're going to be doing things a little bit differently from previous catalog shows. We had so many excellent questions, and we got a lot of products to discuss. So we're not going to go over every single page and item in the catalog, but rather we're going to focus on our favorite highlights. Obviously, the anniversary product, because that's a big theme of the catalog this time. And, of course, your burning questions. So without further ado, let's jump in.
All right. So let's start with the big topic for tonight, which is the 125th anniversary of Lionel. There were a lot of highly anticipated items for this anniversary. Ryan, could you give us some insight on the thought process behind the items that were selected to represent the history of Lionel for the 125th anniversary? And are there going to be more items for the Volume 2 catalog that represent the history of Lionel? I know there's a lot of people who are looking forward to these classic Lionel models to come back as modern reimaginings.
Well, first of all, I always love when the first question that comes out of a 700-item new catalog is, what's going to be in the next catalog? It's always fun. No, this one has been in the making for a long time. I know we've sort of teased this even in some of our previous catalog shows here on this program. You only turn 125 once, and if you're lucky enough as a corporation to make it that long. And so the biggest challenge for all of us as we did this as the company was sort of gets to the heart of your question, right? Which ones do you highlight? There are so many to choose from. Obviously, we could do many catalogs over with just rehits. We also wanted to throw some new things in there as well, as we always do. There are certain icons that tend to rise to the top. Things like Hudson's and GG1s and F units and so forth, and that we've been spreading some of those things out over a couple of catalogs, really starting with C2 of last year, and we'll have a few more good throwbacks to wrap up our 125 celebration in the Volume 2 catalog coming out in about another 6 months or so. So yes, you haven't seen quite the last of the throwbacks yet. If your favorite engine or car or memory wasn't brought back to life in round one, there's still definitely another shot at it. But as a whole, the company looks at these things, and the project managers, we all put in our say of what we'd like to do based on the tooling we have, based on the things we've got available, and the space we have in the catalog. And it goes through a peer review process within the company where people from all departments look at it. and help to make decisions on what should stay, what could go, and most importantly, what could be tweaked and improved upon to make it the best catalog possible to make as many people happy as we can. So yeah, it's a long process. Every catalog takes at least a year to develop behind the scenes. Some products in the catalog take longer than that, and this is a big one for all of us. I think when you look at especially at the physical product, you can see a lot of care went into putting this out to make it a catalog worthy of the company, worthy of our legacy, and worthy of this anniversary.
Very well put. Yeah, there's a lot of really great items in here. I kind of segueing to the next category that really stood out to us and to our viewers. Um, John, I think this was also a favorite for you. The throwback Hudson set with the tin plate style cars. Those were really beautiful. That's probably honestly one of my favorite items in the entire catalog.
It is for me as well. I'm that's the thing that's tempting me more than anything in this catalog. I'm so excited to see what that's going to look like.
Exactly. And you put it really well. Like, I think, and Sid, I think could definitely chime in on this. The most iconic engine, I think, for Lionel's history has to be the Hudsons. And we're spoiled for choice, especially with the return of the Vision Line Hudson and later on the Commodore Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I don't. I've been in this hobby for basically my entire life, and the Hudson in general, just as a type of locomotive, has always been the number one thing that everyone loves. And of course, it kind of put Lionel on the track they are today. I don't work for the company, but I'm pretty sure we wouldn't be seeing Lionel, making scale models if it wasn't for that Hudson. It it's it's the legendary engine, and for them to bring it back for this anniversary, it makes complete sense, and especially with all the new features and stuff we've come to expect.
For sure. I mean, how many of us, grew up watching TM's videos and having the Hudson ingrained in our brains, thanks to Tom McComas, the late Tom McComas. So, but let's move on to the Vision Hudsons. So one of the questions from our community were the engine number 5319 looks a little bit different from the others and the catalog art. So this is actually the normal Hudsons, not the Commodore Vanderbilts. So is it going to be painted anything unique, or is it just going to be a standard black Hudson just because the render looked different slightly from the other ones in the catalog?
So the 5319 is the locomotive in the 20th Century Limited set. On page, what is it, 17, I believe? 17, 19, or no, sorry, 39. Gosh. That will be a black Hudson. That set's designed to be prototypical based. So your standard looking black Hudson, all the same normal features, nothing particularly unique about the locomotive. We wanted to keep something sort of typical for the 20th century set as it was, trying to capture sort of the spirit of your typical century, without going anything too crazy there. This 20th Century Limited set, as it is, really kind of one of my favorite items in the catalog. It really is a standout from an operational feature, with the 4 different sound cars in there. I think this is the first time we've ever really tried to give you that full passenger experience inside your train, from the different lounge cars and the diners to making up the berths and having the sleeping cars at night and so forth. And if you're going to do it, there are really no more iconic passenger train to do it with than the 20th Century Limited. So why not start there? And since the Century, for as well known as it is, I mean, there's so much that goes into that train. And one of the things as you read on it is you realize that, there were so many of them. It wasn't really just one 20th Century Limited. There were multiple sections daily, and each one was probably a little bit unique in terms of its consist and its makeup. While there were some standards that were more or less constant throughout all the runs in that time period, each train was a little bit different, a little bit unique in its accommodations, depending on the cars available and the amount of tickets sold. And so we wanted to try and capture, a typical train chip on the 20th Century Limited as best as we could, and the 5319 sort of fits that mold as your standard power for the era.
I gotta compliment you guys on the sounds cars. Not only just this set, but just when you run the tray, you operational wise, you watch it go in circles so many times, and there's only so much you can do. But I think something that Lionel's always stood out compared to the competition is you guys do sequences and immersion and more play value while the engine is in motion compared to any other manufacturer in O scale right now. I love the sounds cars you guys do. I have the Vision baggage. I've got some Dyna cars. I've got some PFEs, Vision PFEs, stock cars. The fact you have all that while the train is moving does make you feel like you're actually going somewhere. And the fact you guys have not only done that with the 20th century, but done it in multiple cars is super exciting. You guys always come with really creative scenarios. Like I said, the Vision baggage is probably one of my favorites, just because not only is it cool sounds, but you guys always manage to fit some joke in there that always makes people laugh. So I'm very excited for this one. Moving on to our next question. So there is it looks like you guys are also doing scale pilot trucks for the new Vision J1E Hudsons. So how does that work? Is it something that's included with the locomotive when it ships out? Are people going to need to reach out to customer service to get that pilot truck? Is there a limit on how many you can get if you do order it through customer service? What's the process with that for the user, the customer's perspective?
Sure. The plan right now is to have those available through customer service, so that all you have to do is call in. I'm not sure what the costing will be on that yet. We haven't received that from the factory, but it was not included in the original design for the Hudsons. But we got enough requests for that from people, and we said, yeah, this would be something we can do. That we pulled that together afterwards with the design center and whatnot. For those who went to Springfield, we had a sample of that on display next to the 3D printed model of the Vanderbilt there in the booth. You'll be able to just call service, or better yet, just even go online through Lionel support and order them and have them shipped straight to you. No limit on how many you can get. The goal for this is not only to make them workable for the current Hudsons, which this will fit both of the regular Vision and the Vanderbilt in this run. They should be compatible backwards to some of the previous Hudsons as well. And, I won't swear they'll work with everything we've made over the last 125 years, but, probably with a little bit of tinkering and engineering, people can use them for other purposes to suit their designs as we go through. But that's the current plan, is that you just be able to purchase that straight through us from service once they become available, which should be right around the same time that the locomotives arrive.
Gotcha. I appreciate the clarification. Yeah, that's definitely something that a lot of people were very curious about, especially like I said, from the end user's perspective. How we want to how we'd go about doing that. So, but we greatly appreciate you guys going the extra step for the offering that as well.
And actually, one of the reasons that we're looking forward to this too is, we know it's an option that's been spoken of a lot, or a relative amount of requests for it. We're anxious to see how many people actually take us up on the trucks to see how many of these do get used. And that could be a nice indicator for us for future production if something like this needs to become more of a standard thing, or if it becomes, if due to curve issues and track issues, the majority of people prefer our current truck designs. So we'll keep an eye on that as things go forward to see where it takes us in the future.
Let's go into the probably one of the biggest eye-catching engines of this catalog, the Commodore Vanderbilt. What a legendary engine that you guys have built in your history in terms of the modern years. And I think for me, it holds a special place in my heart because it was the first run session I ever had with Matt Rochford was at my place, and our buddy Jason brought his Commodore over. And those things are built like tanks. And Matt is a guy who likes to run those engines slow. And watching him try to run an engine with a Pullmore motor that weighed as much as a cinder block around my leg was very amusing. But people have been begging for a reissue of this for many, many years, I know. So the fact that we finally have it is very exciting. I know you probably were excited for this release as well, Sid. But Going into actually, Sid, do you want to go ahead and tackle the questions for this one? I can't think of somebody who best represents this engine more than you.
Sure. Yeah, I can ask the questions for this one. It is a fantastic model. This was my childhood dream model, and I remember getting it one Christmas morning, and it was the original one from 1996, and it was a dream come true, and it's awesome to see it back with all the bling, and it's a Vision Line model, and that kind of is a part of the first question. So the Commodore Vanderbilt is returning as a Vision Line engine, and many folks are excited and curious on what makes the engine a candidate for Vision Line. We've come to expect fun features such as safety valve or whistle steam, and so the question is, can we expect those in the Commodore Vanderbilt, or even additional features that haven't been seen before?
Well, no, we're not going to put any additional features that into the engine that weren't in the catalog. The reason that this came about, and sort of to back everybody up a little bit on this, because the underlying question there is, why is this Vision when it doesn't have 50 smoke units and a brand new feature? As we've talked about before, as I think most people know, but for those who don't, we do an all new Vision Line locomotive every other year. So this last year's was the Triplex. On the times in between, we do a reissue. Now this year we're actually doing two reissues. We're reissuing the GG1 from the last catalog, and we're reissuing the J1E from in C1. Again, anniversary year, we bend the rules a little bit and went a little nuts. But we do a reissue in the intervening years. And of course, no question, obviously, why we picked the Hudson for this catalog. A lot of work goes into those reissues. They're not just dust off the molds and kick them out the way they were done the first time around, as you've seen on all of the ones that we've done to this point. But while we're going through that exercise with the Vision Hudson, it felt like the right time, and from a design and tooling and cost perspective for the production of it and the tooling of it, to go ahead and recreate the Commodore as well. The original tooling for that has long since left our possession. So we needed to do all new tooling for this, since the lower third of the engine was well taken care of with the rehit of the J1E. We figured this was the best time to do the Commodore. I did not announce them all at the same time back in November. We wanted to hold a little bit back for this catalog. But that's how the Commodore came to join this lineup. And the plan, of course, was keep all the same features, keep it basically the same engine, just streamlined. The only feature that the Commodore wouldn't get that the other J1s have is the swinging bell. And again, for reasons that should be pretty obvious looking at the locomotive, why we didn't keep the swinging bell in there. With that, is this a new locomotive that's not Vision? Well, it's not a new feature, and it's not really a rehit. We had sort of this in-between case where in the catalog we could have gone one of two paths. We could have made it a regular legacy line locomotive, in which case we would have been asked, why are these Hudson's Vision and this one's not? Or we could keep the Vision banner, keep the road number specific dialogue, keep the 2-year warranty, and keep all of the Hudson's grouped together. Whichever path we took, based off of the costing of the locomotive, we were going to be at the same retail price. So we figured throw in the crew talk and the extra warranty and keep it Vision. Because regardless of the color of the box, it was going to be the same model, the same price, and this was the way we chose to go with it. It does not mean that we won't go back to new Vision again. We will. In fact, by the end of this year, you'll see an all new locomotive with an all new feature that Dave and I are really excited about. But for this case, that's where we came from. And so that's how the J1 and the Commodore ended up being in the same catalog at the same time and with the Vision banner. They're both really good engines for this intermediate Vision year.
Nice.
That's a that's a good wrap up of that's a probably a huge topic going on. I initially was seeing what everyone was saying, then I sort of just stayed out of it. I didn't really want to get into arguments with people over it. You answered quite a few questions there. One of which I had is that the shell itself is not the old one. Several people were speculating that, and I looked at it from an engineering standpoint, and the fact that the old ones were made here in the U.S. I didn't see it as possible. I think the old one was made with probably standard units, and now everything's metric. And so yeah, that's a good wrap up of that topic, and I see it. I think it's great. It's a beautiful engine. It is underneath all the shrouding. It is a J1E, and so it makes complete sense to put it as part of this. And I'd imagine it would make production easier, because then you have a ton of sub assemblies for the frame, being all made at once, and instead of having separate, separate production, several years apart.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Just very much like the prototype in this case.
Yeah.
Under the hood, we wanted to keep the engines the same,
Mm-hmm.
and it rings true here with these models as well.
I think I heard this floating around, and you can sort of see it on the model. Is the shell going to have a sort of wavy metal effect going on, or is that just something people have said?
No, that's definitely going to be there. That's part of the tooling, part of the detailing on this is to give the panels a little bit of natural undulation and variation. Not trying to make it any more perfect than the prototype was.
Yeah.
And I think that definitely stands out, especially on some of the tin plate and then the glossier paint schemes. You'll really the light will really catch that. Though even on the 3D printed plastic shell in the case, you could still
Yeah.
pick that up.
No, that's really cool. I think it'll add a lot of effect, and I imagine if anybody wants to weather theirs, weathering will bring that out even more.
Oh, absolutely.
And you were mentioning the other versions that are being made. There's several. There's the template remakes, which is so cool to see the red one and the blue one back. Those are just classic models, the blue streak and then the red comet, and then a couple others. And the gold one is one that people had some questions about. And so in the catalog, it looks like disc drivers, but what type of drive wheels are on the gold Commodore? And the question additionally, is it being supplied with a display case to go with it, to be displayed on?
So the Commodore will have, the Gold will have the disc drivers.
Okay.
The Lionel Store Loco of the Year does as well. I want to mention, because it doesn't show in the catalog, the catalog shows both versions of drivers having the same side rods. All the disc versions will have the roller bearing equipped side rod detail as well. So that is one thing you won't catch in the catalog. The gold one is not coming with a case. We have done cases in the past, and unfortunately, they do not survive shipping very well. Has been our finding with those, and so we'll leave it up to folks to find their own case.
Yeah, that makes complete sense to me.
It does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, like I'd imagine half the time people don't even use them, and so it probably just doesn't make sense in the end. But for the most part, yeah, that's most of what people were asking for the Commodore. I really like the Commodore Vanderbilt. I have the old one. I loved all the ones you made in past, even the silver one. And so it's really cool to see this engine back, and I can't wait to see it come out. John, do you have anything to add? I know you're also a very big New York Central guy.
I just love that we're just seeing a consistent stream of Central flowing into the marketplace here. Like, I can echo everything my co-hosts have said. This 20th century set, having this with the 20th century. I mean, come on, get that set and also get one of these. It pulled it. There's film footage of it pulling it. Why would you not?
Exactly.
Why would you not get it? And I'm so pumped for the blue streak. I can't wait to see that one.
I have the re-release from 1999, and like they said, beautiful engine all the way around, looks great. I'm sure this one will sound just as good, and I'm really excited for this one too.
Well, kind of touching base real quick. This is one that I did hear in terms of conversations that our community has had. No, I'm suspecting. I'm not sure how your guys' sound library goes that far back. There are some people who are curious if there's a potential for that sound set from the last run of Vanderbilt to come back. Is that something that's possible, or is that way too old of technology to bring back?
Those recordings would be way too old. I don't think we'd have any way to do those. We'll be working with the more recent recordings that we have and some of the other tips that we got from previous New York Central locomotives that we've done recently to try and get the best sounding recordings here we can. Some of the throwback inspired ones too, of course, we'll put in like an air whistle sound and things like that, not just with the Hudsons, but with the S2s and things. So now that you have 5 whistle options, we can have a little bit of fun in there and give you some that are just a little bit more whimsy.
Yeah, as an owner and a fan of the Dreyfus, I love the way the Dreyfus sounds. So, if this sounds, similar to it, that'll be a home run sound wise, in my opinion.
Well, speaking of the constant stream of New York Central stuff, let's go back to the 20th century for a second. We had a question regarding the cars in the 20th century. Matt Z, as one of our resident New York Central fans, do you want to take care of that question real quick?
Question reads as follows: are the new heavyweight passenger cars for the Vision Hudsons all going to have the kinematic couplers and scale coupler compatibility? It also says that the Niagara Falls set and the new 6.6 sleeper cars are listed as such, but not the 20th Century Limited cars.
These are all well. We do have the new tooling for the 6.6 sleeper. That's really side and roof and interior tooling. The core frame of these cars remains our tried and true 18-inch passenger car. We have not redone all of those yet for kinematic couplers. I believe they are. I believe you can, however, put the scale couplers on them, but we have not put the kinematics in there yet. That would be another significant redesign to the entire 18-inch car program, which was not in the cards at this point in time.
Okay, appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Since we are on the topic of the new sleeper cars, there are intentions to make that car in non-sound versions and maybe just other railroads. I'm not a historian, but I'd imagine other people would love that for their railroads, and maybe not with sound, depending on what they like and don't like.
Oh, absolutely. For this first go round, obviously we did some Pullman pool cars, pool service cars further back in the catalog, which are a nice generic model for somebody who wants to add one with sound to literally any train in the country, right? You don't have to stretch the imagination too hard to put one of those in there.
Yeah.
Once we have tooling, we like to use it. So you'll definitely see this car come about more often, not just with sounds, but without sounds in future sets, 2-packs, single car offerings, etc. We'll definitely get our money's worth out of this investment.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's a car that I was very surprised and very impressed by, especially the two-tone gray New York Central one. That one's really cool because we actually have one of those that you can ride at our local museum, at the Illinois Red Museum, and we actually got a chance to ride that behind the Decapod, I think around like shortly before midnight during the showcase weekend. So being able to ride that car in the rain behind steam power at night was super cool. So the fact that folks who have that engine and they want to replicate something like that can be able to now purchase it from this catalog. So very excited for what kind of sequences you guys have planned for this for the sleepers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to the next one. John, do you want to take this next product here?
Absolutely. We got the Vision Line Auto Racks. This was definitely being talked about a lot by the modern modelers. So we have got from our community. It's regarding the first one is regarding the end of train device. So the catalog says that the end of train device is able to be taken off easily and put back on, along with the cars themselves being able to be converted to scale couplers. But if someone wanted to convert the rack to scale couplers, would there be a way easily to put the EODT back on the car?
I think that would depend on what your definition of easily is. It's actually it's a great question. When I read that, I went, okay, someone out there is pushing things, which is awesome. As a scale guy myself, I like it. The way that these attach, if you've seen some of our previous cars where we've used the EOTs, they screw on to the side of the lobster claw. That being said, screwing that on with the same mount to a KD probably wouldn't work exactly, but making your own stamped bracket that you could attach to a scale coupler would not be the most difficult job in the world, in my estimation. For the lobster claw users, we wanted to make it so that if you wanted more than one vision car in the train, if you wanted to put this car mid train, you had that option fairly easily. You remove the screw, you open up the back doors of the car, and the two wires for the EOT just plug right into a connector in there. So you could easily take the coupler, take the EOT off. At a later point, you decide you want to put it back on. As long as you haven't lost the screw, you'll be good to go. With a scale coupler, it'll take a little bit more work than that, but it should still be very doable if you've got the will and the willingness to try.
That is definitely a good question, and appreciate it. Customization is always a big thing everybody likes to do with their models, especially now that we're seeing a lot more two-railers. And the fact that you guys are making such good scale quality products is proof of that people want to convert them and, move them up to, two rail and whatever else they want to do. So that is great to hear. Thank you. Second question definitely came from a car person. It's for the what sort of vehicle? Oh, sorry, excuse me. I should be specific. What era of vehicle alarm is Lionel going to do for these? Like, is there a specific type of car or a specific era? 1980s to 2020s is very broad. So, did you guys have anything in mind for this, or do you now?
We have not yet chosen all of the audio files for this. Dave had a quick mock-up sample to show sort of the operation and the concept when we were at Springfield. You may have seen that, or you may have seen some videos of that out there online by now. We have not made final sound clip decisions for what car alarms we will use. We'll go out on a limb here and say that our audio engineer Tracy is not a car guy, and so he is not out there right now researching the various car alarms used by various manufacturers at different points in their production history. I sure hope he's not, because we have other things he could be doing instead. But and the reality is we will probably mix a couple of different ones in there to give it a more interesting and eclectic sound when everything's going awry. So I don't have a specific answer to that other than we'll wait. You'll just have to wait and see a little bit of what alarms come out. But we're not going to that level of research in this particular case.
How about a quillable car alarm?
Beep.
Yeah, right.
The horn dying. Oh my gosh! Now, variety sounds good. That's a good way of addressing that. I like it. Well, very cool. There you go, folks. You got to wait to hear what they come up with. All right. So that's a very cool car. I love that idea.
Looking to expand your collection? Check out Trains.com. Trains is your go-to place for new and used model railroad products. They have everything ranging from engines, rolling stock, parts, track, and scenery. If you need it, they probably have it. With new discounts being added daily, you'll be sure to find something you like. Plus, Trains offers a newsletter which keeps you up to date on new items, discounts, and upcoming promotions. We've been using Trains for years, and we highly recommend their stellar service. What's really cool is you can also collect points by buying Trains and using them on future purchases. With their awesome rewards program, you can earn points on every purchase that you can use for future discounts. Dedicated modelers can also join their private car membership to get exclusive access to new listings, earn 5 points per dollar spent, and unlock great benefits like no questions asked returns. Trains not only sells trains, but also buys them too. If you've got a large collection or are interested in downsizing and making some cash, you can head on over to sellmytrains.com. It doesn't get easier than that. You can find them using our affiliate link, www.trains.com/MMOP, or if you want to use our one-time promo code MMOP, you can get $10 off a single purchase on the Trains.com website. So check out Trains.com and start expanding your collection today.
Next one up is Steam. We're getting into the one of the most talked about engines as well. Probably the most talked about outside of the Hudsons were the Heislers. It's the Heislers. So a lot of people are excited. We're getting some small steam. People always love small steam, and this is such a unique engine. I don't think anybody else does a Heisler. You guys are the only ones. So during the review that you guys did, Dave mentioned there were some changes to this model of the Heisler from the last run. What was changed?
So feature-wise, we added Bluetooth, and of course the other later legacy updates that have come with Legacy since its last release. We did not add an extra smoke unit or a swinging bell. This thing is already packed as tightly as it could be. But one of our challenges that we have ongoing is, and Dave reminds me of this all the time, as every time I say, well, we've already done this, it should be easy. Yes, we've changed boards since then, Ryan. Oh, that's right. So when you change boards, sometimes things don't always fit the way they used to. And when you're dealing with a locomotive like this, where everything is already packed in there pretty tightly, even adding something as seemingly small and simple as a Bluetooth module really changes the board design and the interior space required for our control system. So we had to go back to square one and figure out how to mesh it all in there. It was not easy, but we got it all in without any loss of features. That was my goal. I didn't want to see us take a step back. And so kudos to the design and engineering teams for keeping it all in there. Definitely the complexity of this build, not just inside but out, certainly adds to the beauty of the engine, but also to its cost. These are not easy locomotives to put together, and so the factory always quotes accordingly when we see these geared engines come through. But I think they're worth it. If you like geared steam, then you already know. You already know how much more fun they are to just watch and enjoy than the normal steam locomotives. They have their place and their role, and they're just a hoot to have on a layout. Might be one of my favorite steam engines in the catalog, actually, but I'm a Pensy guy, so I'm already biased against half of this catalog. But yeah, no, it'll be a fun locomotive to watch in operation. This is one for those guys who like to really slow them down and study the detail and study the operation. This is your engine.
I can definitely imagine. You beautifully segued into what was essentially the next question there, which was, these engines are very ornate and complex. You got a lot of stuff going there with the V-drive pistons and keeping everything hidden from view so you can see that machinery working. So based on what you're saying, it sounds like all those complex things and re-engineering this does definitely contribute to the production cost and price tag versus, say, a normal, simple, steam engine like any other. Would you say so?
Oh, 1,000%. Smaller doesn't always mean cheaper. And that's common. I see that even with, when you talk diesel locomotives and, the switcher should be half the price of a road engine. Well, inside it still has all the same complexities. It has all the same, it's doing all the same stuff. And we now have to try and figure out how to make it do all that same stuff in a smaller footprint. Mm-hmm. So in many cases for us, the smaller the engine, the more challenging it is to build. When you compare the level of detail on the Heisler to the S2, for example, the S2 is giant block of die cast metal. It's a beautiful one, and we've made some nice little changes to that and some subtle improvements in that tooling as well. But it's a beast with plenty of room to work around in it. The Heisler's the complete opposite.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. If I can just say personally, great choices on road names for this time around. Very cool options. You could have a lot of fun with these smaller engines because everybody owned them.
Yeah. Well, and also for the guys who like to do some customization, no two of these were alike, and no two of them stayed very much as built for very long. So, if you like to do detailing, if you like to weather, if you like to tell those stories with your models, a Heisler is a great place to start. Get some of the added details out there and go to town and make it your own. These are really fun locomotives for the modelers among us.
Beautifully answered. I love it. Mr. Johnny, the A6 is a Southern Pacific prototype. I'm going to go ahead and throw the A6s back on you, sir.
I want to actually do one more point. I want to kind of piggyback off of for the last engines we were talking about.
Please do.
Another thing, kind of just I know price is a really hard thing to talk about when it comes to this hobby, but I just for putting perspective, because I think this is an aspect that a lot of us as hobbyists tend to miss. Inflation is also a big aspect of this, and if you calculate how much the engine went for last time it was released versus what it should be with inflation right now, these engines are actually under what it would be with inflation. So considering how much complexity goes into these engines, I'd say you guys did a really good job with keeping the pricing where it is. I know not everybody can swallow that kind of price tag, but putting that into perspective, I think this is a really good bang for your buck if you keep that in mind.
Oh, dang. Mic drop there, Johnny. Holy moly.
Relativity is always important. I was
right.
comparing the Commodore we talked about earlier in some groups to the Dreyfus. The Dreyfus is new tooling, and it was only just a smidge under the Vanderbilt, and the Vanderbilt just having some a lot more customization to it, and the additional warranty and parts, and just I was like, it's all relative. Relativity can be used both ways, but in most cases, like Johnny said, it's usually there's a reason. It's not just just random, like, oh, we're just charging whatever. No, there's usually a reason, and
there's always a reason. There's always a reason, and that reason, believe it or not, is not Ryan's retirement fund. But I mean, it's interesting. It's kind of fun when we see these debates rehashed around, of all things, the Hudson, because when the Hudson first came out in the 1930s, it was compared to how expensive it was, and I think some of the things I said, we could go and buy a new refrigerator for that.
Yeah.
And of course, for a lot of people in the 1930s, a refrigerator was truly a luxury, right? Not like it is today. But I would challenge you to go buy a new refrigerator in 2025 for the price of our Vision Hudson. So in some ways, things have always been expensive in this hobby. I think and we've tried to have options for multiple budgets. I know we'll talk about it a little bit further down here, but things like the battery operated sets, designed specifically to go after younger audiences and newcomers into the hobby, with a lower pay to play cost of entry, while at the same time maintaining a top of the line product for those who can enjoy it and like that sort of thing.
Very well put. It's important to keep all aspects of that market in mind.
Really quick, I think the best comparable item now to compare like Lionel trains to are eggs. So
you can't run eggs on your layout.
Wow.
Yeah, so. Oh my gosh. We can strike that. That's all right.
Let's move on to the next steam locomotive in the catalog there, which is the A6 Atlantics. This is an engine that I actually have, and actually was my first scale Lionel steam locomotive I purchased with my own money when I reached adulthood. So seeing these come back is really cool. One of the things I did notice in previous years, and some of the other members of our community did bring it up as well. Um, with the headlight visors, those are always shown on catalog renderings, but they haven't appeared on the actual models when they were delivered. Um, is there plans for that to be the case on the new upcoming models, or is that just something that is strictly on the render?
I'll actually take a look into that. Now we've changed some of the headlights out, as you probably noticed on these various Atlantics. It's one of the details that we change kind of often. So it's not a one size fits all or a one answer will fit all question. I'm not quite sure why there would be a difference between the art and the tooling in these cases, but I'll look into it to see where we are with the castings. I already know we're doing some new castings for these headlights as it is, so there's certainly an opportunity to correct the visors. But here tonight, I don't have a solid one way or another answer for you, especially not for each different headlight in the catalog.
Completely understandable. There's so many variations and a lot of new versions as well. I know one that caused a lot of debate and interest were actually the Santa Fe one. That was one that I think John, you and I even talked about that as well. A lot of the Santa Fe guys were pretty interested and excited about that one.
Yes, indeed.
Let's do this. We're gonna since we're finish shaping on Steam. This one isn't in the OSCO catalog, but you guys announced HO Burks. Matt R, did you, as our resident HO guy, did you wanna tackle that real quick?
Yeah, so like Johnny said, recently, we had the HO catalog, kind of a little surprise here, that I'm actually pretty excited for. And there was a question on the HO Burks. The nickel plate Rhodes Berkshires mostly had black smoke boxes in service. The catalog has them with a dark graphite colored smoke box. Is this the look that Lionel is going for? Is it just a rendering thing?
So one of the fun things about graphite is that it varies a lot from railroad to railroad, from locomotive to locomotive, just from time to time as it weathers. Typically, it tends to lighten as it weathers. Um, we'll probably do some varying shades, even on the nickel plate. I think the art we actually have called out for a different shade on the 765 versus some of the others that are be done. 765 will be done with a little bit more gloss, the polished side rods, and so forth to give it more of the modern, well kept excursion engine. 757, 763, I think is the other road number we chose for this one this time around. Those will have the blackened rods and a different shade of graphite and so forth. So there's also usually a little bit of difference in the rendering. We typically try and render black parts, especially a little bit lighter than they'll appear on the final model because details just don't show up when it's black. So there's definitely some room for change there. But one of the cool things about graphite is it's also easy enough to change that on your own if it's something you want to lighten or darken. A quick wash will take care of you one way or the other, usually on that. As a modeler, if you want to set yours off a little bit, but you can also usually find a photograph of an engine somewhere on some day of the week that proves that whatever color it was that you chose was correct, as long as it's not primer gray.
Excellent, thank you. And then with the latest offering of the diecast Berkshires, is this a next step forward for Lionel for like continued growth in the HO sector? Might we see maybe some passenger cars or?
Absolutely. The plan here is that this is the start of a long line of high end HO. So provided this thing does not completely crash and burn, then definitely more locomotives are already on the drawing board. More rolling stock is already on the drawing board. We saw the ore cars, the G38 ore cars that we announced as well. If you're a Penn Central Conrail modeler, that was welcome surprise and welcome news to a lot of them. They've been waiting for that car for about 25, 30 years now. So lots more planned there as a high-end venture into HO, partnering with ESU On the DCC side of things, they are they're an incredible company. They make an incredible product. No reason for us to reinvent the wheel in HO. But two, they're just great people, and they're as excited to be working with us as we are with them. And the ideas are already bouncing back and forth for new things to come, new features, you know, new ways of partnering together in the years ahead. I can't go really any further into it than that, other than to say it's been great working with them so far, and we're really excited about where we see the potential being for Lionel in the HO world going forward.
Yeah, after I saw the ESU logo, I was very, very excited. It's the first thing I did in our Discord is because we kind of have a DCC little channel, is Lionel and ESU. Like that's a fantastic mix, and that makes me feel really good about you guys working with HO, and just ESU is a fantastic company. I have plenty of ESU HO locomotives, and you definitely made the right choice there as far as a partner for DCC sounds and boards.
Like, I appreciate hearing that. That's one of the reasons we did that. We're a new venture in the HO world, so anything we can do to help give you some confidence in what you're going to get is a big thing. And knowing how it's going to run, how it's going to sound, and that you're not going to have DCC control issues with it out of the box is certainly something that helps sell the locomotive when you've never bought a Lionel HO engine before.
I know for a fact our community, who is, well, as Matt said, both really into DCC, but also we have a lot of folks who are multi-scale. A lot of the folks who saw your announcement for the HO Berks were beyond excited, because it really throws a curveball into the offerings for scale Berks in the HO market right now. So I've seen almost nothing but positive and a very excited responses when it comes to when it came to that announcement.
Good. Yeah, and there will be more things to come, and as we get our first tooled samples and things that we can do some more demonstrations with, we'll be promoting that very heavily in the months ahead. Our goal is to deliver that our first locomotive there by the end of this year, but we definitely also want to take the time to get it right. So if we see some things as we're working through the design that could be tweaked and improved, then we'll take the time to do that. We want this one to be all that it can be. We went with the Burke because it is a popular engine. It's a well-known engine, but unlike some of the other popular and well-known engines like Big Boys and things like that, while it's certainly been done, it hasn't been done to death in the HO market, and hasn't been done at a high degree of detail like this for quite some time. So felt the time was right to introduce this. Our next couple of locomotives will be a little more obscure. There'll be some first timers in HO. So our goal is not just to go out there and remake what everyone else has made. We want to have our own niche in the market. And so far right now, they're all planned to be smaller steam engines as well. That's another thing that we've heard is we don't need any more big articulateds or even Northerns and Texans. We need, some moderate to small to moderate sized steam. And so you'll be seeing some more good things to come from us along that regard. But I am falling us way off topic and getting into dangerous waters here.
It is all good. It's going to sound great.
Enjoying this week's topic? You can join in on the conversation too on our community Discord server. We have a lot of different discussion channels, ranging from showing off your collection, discussing the latest and greatest in the industry, a buy and sell forum, and even a voice channel you can hop on call and talk trains with us late into the night. We're a little over 300 strong, and we'll love to have you join us too. Check out the invite link to our community Discord down in the show notes. Read and acknowledge the rules, and introduce yourself and start chatting. We have a great team of moderators who make sure all are welcomed and respected. So what are you waiting for? Come on down and join us in on the fun, and let's talk some trains.
Let's segue over to the diesels. A staple in all the catalogs as of recent has been the ES44, and that is always one that I always see people getting excited for, especially the modern guys. There were some questions on the catalog art for the, I think it's Southern Heritage Unit, as the green. They just want to confirm the shade of green, and if it'll be more like a dark green / black, or is that just the rendering? or is it actually supposed to be the traditional green that we're used to?
It'll be our traditional Southern green, same one. We actually spec'd out the same paint used on the previous round of all the heritage units, unless there was a case where we knew there was backlash over the color. One thing I did notice in general with this catalog, the printed version especially, we used a heavier paper, a higher grade of paper on this catalog, and that changed the color printouts a little bit. Tending to a little bit more towards the dark side than normal. No Star Wars pun intended there at all. But so that might be causing some of the confusion there. But from a color chip wise, from an art wise perspective, we use the same normal Southern green.
That's good to hear. That's very reassuring for all the folks who want to get that engine there.
Yeah. Well, and Sarah, who does a lot of our art, she's a Southern fan, so she wouldn't let that engine get anything but the right green on it.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you, Sarah.
Let's move on to another fan favorite, which are the Train Masters. As an SP guy, I'm very excited to see these come back as well. So actually, the first one is on the Southern Pacific Train Masters on number 3033. This is one that's kind of a bit of a wish from the person who asked. They understand that there are restrictions, but they want to know if it's possible to move the long hood or the rear set of number boards to the high position per the prototype. But they just want to see if that's possible. They understand that might be a significant change in the tooling, but they thought they'd just ask just in case.
Yeah, unfortunately, that one would be a pretty significant change in the tooling. So that one I can't do.
Completely understandable.
Yeah. We did make some changes in the Trainmaster tooling the last time we ran it, maybe 2, 3, 5 years ago now. They all blend together, but we changed with some new walkways and new headlight arrangements on the end, but still only changed up to a point.
Completely understandable. I think I have the last run of Black Widow Train Masters you guys did. I have that. I think that's the run I have. But I do, as an SP guy, really appreciate you guys going at the extra mile and putting all the crazy SP lighting on the front of those engines. Because Matt Z and I spent a night just combing through all the different Train Masters done in the last couple years, and you guys were on the top for who got it spot on. So we appreciate that.
Oh yeah, you guys did an excellent job, and I can't wait to see what happens next. Maybe
sure.
SP Jeeps at some point.
We've got an SP guy on the engineering team, so there will always be SP stuff coming around.
Hey. Right. So I gotta ask, since we're on the topic SP, really quick side tangent. Whose idea was the daylight turbine? Because I've been pinged every single day for that week from 4 people on a daily basis. Who was who came up with that one? If you're able to say.
Oh, that was me. That was me all day long. And the logic behind that, honestly, from a product perspective, is that I do like to try and mix things up a little bit, East Coast, West Coast, do some things different. And thought, well, we've not, to my knowledge, really done a Western Road turbine. Union Pacific would have just been another black engine. I didn't really want to do that. Although now that I'm thinking it through, a Greyhound might actually be a neat one for a future option. Santa Fe, I couldn't bring myself to put a war bonnet on a steam turbine.
Other people will, don't worry.
Yeah, other people will do that. and then SP, I was like, well, you know what? It could maybe a daylight version would look neat, and it will make Dave mad. So and when Dave saw it, his reaction, his words to me were, "I hate that I don't hate it." So an SP guy, I figured we had hit the mark. I think it's a colorful engine. It looks neat. It's a fantasy. If you like it, great. If you don't, there's other options. Yeah, we just want to get something out there for the West Coast guys, sort of like we did a Chessie System GS4 when we did those a few years ago, right? Kind of sacrilege in some circles, but the model looked good and sold well, and hopefully this one does also.
Hey, as I've owned a fantasy model, and hey, I guess from a business standpoint, if they sell, then why not you keep making them? There's always going to be, someone that doesn't like it. I'm a CNO guy. I'm not I have the Greenbrier. The turbine's not for me. I'm not a big turbine guy, but I see that, the CNO had turbines, and then the same thing, once the scheme catches on, people love them. They collect them. Pat's Trains does the black bonnet, on pretty much everything made now. But if it sells, then, why not keep making it? It makes complete business sense.
Absolutely.
I stand in solidarity with Dave as an SP person. But hey, for the folks who like it, and if you enjoy it, then you enjoy it. Going back to the Trainmaster, since that's the topic here, there was also some questions about kinematic pilots or potentially fixed pilots, since some of these pulled passenger trains. Will that be something that you'll be looking into on this model, or is it just going to be the normal swinging pilots?
It's something we could look into for the future, but not on this round with this design. We did not incorporate it into the design at this point.
Completely understandable. And the last one that also caught the attention of some of the Midwestern guys was the Chicago and Northwestern Trainmasters. Will the chevrons in the front and rear of the Trainmasters continue down into the pilot? And they were also wondering if the silver trucks and green underframe were the rendering were intentional, as both the trucks and underframes were black on the prototype. And the last kind of small request they had, if possible, is if it was possible to move the air horns to be mounted on the side by the fireman side of the cab towards the rear.
The air horns is a good possibility. That's a detail we've moved around on several of them. I went back and I looked at our photos with the silver trucks, and I remembered debating on this one as we went through it, because most of the photos of these engines were black and white that I had, and in the service they were in, it's kind of hard to tell. Are they gray? Are they black? Are they just dirty? Is it ballast dust? But I did find one picture that was clear as day, where they are on one of the units, they are painted bright silver. And so that's the reason that they've got the silver trucks. It matched the prototype photo that I had. I may have come out of one of the Morning Sun Chicago Northwestern Power books. I'll have to dig back through and figure out where I found it, but I had it scanned and included in the worksheet. So that's where the color scheme came from, was from those prototype photos. Is it possible that we based the run off of the exception to the rule that got painted that way one time, and not being the CNW guy, I got fooled? It's possible, for sure. But that's where the silver trucks came from, at least.
Gotcha. Completely makes sense. And hey, I think, John, you and I have talked about this multiple times. You can't say it never happened, because someone will eventually find a picture and prove you otherwise.
Absolutely. It's almost impossible to prove that something didn't happen.
Exactly. I mean, unless it was a Daylight S2, but
Except for
just not our plane of the multiverse. That's all.
Let's briefly go over to the GP35s. Kind of similar question to the Trainmasters. Will these have the regular swinging pilots, or if there's anything special for those? As you can tell, these diesel guys love their fixed or swinging pilots.
Hey, I don't blame them. It makes a big difference in the appearance of the model. Again, on this one, this time around, no changes to the pilots of the Jeep 35s were incorporated. So they'll be the same as previous production runs. But keep the calls for those things coming. It gets heard, and we'll see what we can do down the road. Perfect. We also hear from a lot of people who say, they don't like those because it limits their curve radii, and I hear from all the 031 layout people too. So, keep trying to split the difference on these.
Exactly. Not everybody's a scale guy with a huge layout with 100 curves, and there's a lot of folks who have limited space and that's how they enjoy O scale. Then hey, whatever allows you to run your trains. Let's move over to another one that I really enjoy, which was the SD40 T-2s. We have a resident Rio Grande enthusiast in our Discord. He's been a long-term member, and he wanted to ask a couple things about the details. Specifically for the Rio Grande one, will they have the gyro light in the nose? Because I think a previous run had it flipped, so he just wanted to double check on that.
Yeah, gyro lights should be in the nose on these.
Awesome.
I have seen some Rio Grande locomotives with them on the nose and some with them above the headlights. So, but I believe the 40s 40T-2s were in the nose.
Gotcha. Another one is let's see. So they said that it was safe to say that these will not have kinematic pilots, but will they still have the screw holes for KD mounts, or would that require too much modification to the tooling?
If those KD mount screws were already in the pilots, then they'll still be there. That shouldn't be an issue. But yeah, no kinematic pilots on these.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah, those are really cool engines as an SP guy. Awesome to see that. The Donner set, also a really cool one, and very, very interesting that you managed to the cool one-offs, the rearranged Southern Pacific lettering per the maintenance shop is really cool. I had to do a double take when I saw that for the first time.
Yeah, well, I like it when the prototypes have deco issues. It's fun to incorporate this into my life.
Hey, those are the ones that always stand out and people love collecting. So I'm going to throw the mic over to Matt so he can do the FAQs.
These are great. First of all, if I could just give a quick little 2 cents, these are great. I love all the offerings here. A question that's not on here, but I was just curious on this. The CNW one with the red headlight, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome. The question I had was about the specific about the Santa Fe version, being able to maybe see a post-war horn or bell or other sounds. Is that something that could be in the cards?
Yes, definitely. That one will have the post-war horn as one of the 5 for sure.
Awesome, sweet. And this isn't in here, but the GG one, is that going to have something similar?
Yes, yeah, we'll have that for the throwback GG ones at least. Definitely awesome. Doing that. Mm-hmm.
Sweet, appreciate that. Thank you much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are something that had a lot of discussion, so I know a lot of folks were excited. And the horn question, I'm pretty sure came up at minimum 3 times, so it's definitely something people were excited about. Let's touch base on, since we finished the engines, we can touch base back on autoracks for one more moment. Will the autoracks have any tooling adjustments, such as the ratcheting brake assembly, underframe detail, or any added weight for those who want to run them empty?
No, we have not made any of those changes. Weight wise, these will have weights added into them, the same weights that we've done in the past. So that's they shouldn't have too many issues there. Depending on how long of a train you're running, I mean, I get it; these are big cars. There's certainly no shortage of space inside them to lay a few weights down if you want to. If you're having issues and want to beef up the weight a little bit, would not be a hard thing to do.
Gotcha. I'm going to throw one more quick rolling stock question, or more so just a plea, because our good buddy DJ had begged me to do that earlier today. Since you guys are doing the Train Masters in SP, it would be really cool if you guys could consider using the Reading coach car tooling for some SP commuter Harrimans, maybe one in green, one in gray, because since the gallery cars just came in from Atlas and you guys are announcing Train Masters, it'd be really cool for anybody who really wants to model the Peninsula commuter service, because it's been so iconic for California.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility down the road for sure.
We appreciate that. So that is the end for the scale item section. There were a couple questions regarding the battery operated sets, which I personally am really excited for. I think that's probably one of the items I'm really excited for pre-order wise, especially the Santa Fe one. That one's really cool. And it's a really cool product line, and the fact that they're I'm very excited. One of the questions we had were just kind of in terms of compatibility with the base 3 that just came out. Is this going to be its own isolated, only can be ran by the remote that it comes with, or can it also be ran using the base 3? I know it's kind of a weird question, but people obviously want to run their O-gauge starter sets with their high-end stuff if they can.
No, perfectly legitimate question. The answer is both, yes and yes. The Thomas and the Barbie set that are pictured are not Bluetooth equipped. They are paired only with their remote, mostly to help keep the cost down. Also because we really do truly view those as more in the toy line. Get the really younger ones into it. Really, kind of your very first electric train. However, the other sets all include Bluetooth, and so they are perfectly base 3 compatible. You can run your battery powered Polar Express or your battery powered Santa Fe set with your cab 3 and base 3. We've done that in the office already. So you have that option. It's one of the things we look to that line to be is by making our battery trains in O gauge, you now have the potential to start with a train set that's much more affordable, much more approachable for a young audience, and literally just put it right on an O gauge layout and run to town. They're 2-rail compatible also, of course. So anything that's O gauge, they'll work. The couplers, while the couplers on these trains are non-operating, they are sized so that they will fit and interlock with our standard O gauge couplers. So you can mix and match freight cars and locomotives between the electric line and the battery line without any trouble. We see a lot of potential here as a way to, again, cost is something we've talked about already, and we'll probably talk about again. Something we're very cognizant of. And this is one way to help, lower that entry point into the hobby for people. The sets themselves, they come with actually a fairly large assortment of track. It's an oval with 4 switches to do a figure 8 inside of the oval. A lot of them include some, extra little railroad crossings and plastic trees and things like that too to spruce things up. The passenger cars and the Polar and other sets are also illuminated. There's a battery box in each of the cars, so you can put some. I think those are AA or AAA batteries in there, and there's a light switch on the bottom of the car, so you can still have lighted passenger cars if you so desire. And they're a nice little set, a great way to start things off, and a great way to grow into the hobby.
I think these are a really brilliant way for folks to get into the hobby. This is something that I've been really conscious of when I re-enter the hobby, is that a lot of us seasoned hobbyists tend to forget how hard it is to get into the hobby, and the price point wise sometimes getting a starter set is hard for your average person sometimes. So having the battery powered set is really, really clever. And this is a question that comes up very often, and I have to ask on their behalf. Since this is a new product line, is there going to be more battery powered stuff, or dead rail, I guess is the more official term for it, for potentially like scale-ish style, or is it strictly like semi-scale style toolings?
I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves on it at this point. I think within the hobby space, we certainly we definitely recognize the trends towards dead rail and the advantages that battery has. We're not there yet as a company. There are no immediate plans to do this, but it's not something that I would say is never going to happen either. We have looked a lot as we pulled these sets together. We did look very heavily into rechargeable. There's advantages and disadvantages to that, both from an operator standpoint as well as from a manufacturer standpoint. Right now, the regulations, the shipping, the challenges that go into lithium-ion batteries and the like really precluded us going that route. And I don't know that AA batteries are the solution to our track cleaning and electrical woes in our current high-end electric train market either. So we're not quite there yet, but definitely something that we are looking at for down the road to where this would be an option for folks who don't want to run track power anymore.
Completely understandable. I have one last battery powered question. Mm-hmm. Polar Express and Hogwarts are both now in the battery powered line. Is that going to be what is planned for those releases moving forward, or are we still going to see powered sets from 3-rail?
You're still going to see powered sets in the 3-rail world for sure for both of those trains. They were all new tooling. A completely separate set of tools was made for the battery O versions. The designs were clearly based on our existing O gauge trains, but we made a new molds, made new tools. We will continue to offer those trains in the electric line for as far out as I can see. I don't see any. The only thing that we'll take those out is the sales at some point drop off to the point where they're no longer viable. But I don't see that happening for either of those two licensed properties for sure.
Gotcha. That was just one that I think, John, you and I were I think you specifically, John, had noticed that, so I just wanted
It
to get some
was actually, if
clarification.
you weren't going to ask it, I was going to. Thank you very much for answering that, Ryan. I figured that was probably the case. You guys just wanted to really push this new, fantastic idea. By the way, it's such a good concept just for growth. The fact that you can still use this as you grow in O scale, you can kind of get a handle on the whole idea of it, and you're not locked into a specific proprietary scale that just is kind of a means to an end. This allows for so much growth. This is such a neat idea. I can't wait to see what you guys do with this. This is really cool.
The potential is great in this line. I should probably point out, because we this came up in questions that we saw too from a variety of people saying, well, where's this? Where are all the other sets? Where, if you go back into the still available section of the catalog towards the end, you'll find a lot of your old favorites like the Pen Flyer and which actually also got a facelift this year, but the electric Hogwarts and so forth. A lot of those are still living there. They're active items. We just chose to sort of push those things to the back, along with things like track and so forth, because there is so much new. We wanted those new products to stand out in the catalog and get some attention and spotlight. But a lot of those things are still very much there and around, and in the catalog, just hiding in the back a little bit.
Completely
Got it.
understandable. Go ahead, Matt.
Speaking quickly of new, in the accessories section, my favorite accessory of this whole catalog is the command control crane. I love that. Fantastic job. The throwback 282R. I got to get that. That thing is fantastic. Excellent job with that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we first redid that crane back about 2014, 15, so somewhere in there. For the first time, where it could move back and forth on its rails, and really a fun piece. So glad to bring that one back in. You can really have a lot of fun with that one and on your layout.
Absolutely, I can't wait.
I think that's like hands down one of my favorite accessories. Any of your command control cranes are my favorite accessory that you guys have done. Like whenever I have visitors to the layout, I have one of the normal TMCC boom car and crane car. When I have people come over who are non-trained people, you show them the trains, it runs in circles maybe like 3 or 4 times, and then they're bored because, it's hard for them to get into it. What I usually do is I pull out that crane and I put some like wheel sets next to the track, and I tell them this is like a crane game, like at the arcade, and I need you to move this, and they're mesmerized. And I don't care who it is, they will get mesmerized, especially when their sounds. They don't talk to me for like 30 minutes while they're doing this puzzle. They love it. So great to see that coming back. So let's dive into probably the most asked question. We had over 10 people in our community asking this question. I think it's one of the most hotly debated ones right now. But pricing and model railroading has been a very hot topic, and one that has caused a lot of controversy. With the cost of living increasing so much, and people really need to take into account how much how much they can spend with their limited budgets and all that, people are more price conscious than ever. Many in the hobby are looking for some more transparency when it comes to pricing and prices. And even Scott Mann from Third Rail has even shared recently with his customers, me included, that current and future runs may be affected by tariffs and warned of possible price increases. If possible, Ryan, could you shine some light on why certain items in the catalog have noticeable price increases over others? For example, certain items have scaled well with inflation, taking inflation into account. However, some other ones are a little bit over or more over that point. Is it due to product complexity, or is it due to new tooling? I know this is a very sensitive question. I've had even people asking if you could give us the exact formula. What can you give us in terms of what goes behind the scenes in regards to that?
All right. Well, it's a fair question, and it's one that honestly, if you've listened to this podcast in the past, those of you who are on it, we've had this conversation in the past. I'm not going to. There's nothing to hide from here on our end. I'm not going to give you the specific calculations that we use to figure things out. Not if you want to have me ever back on here again as a Lionel employee. But also, I think math is not really where we want to be when we're doing this podcast tonight. All of our pricing is based off of literally all of our pricing. We have to take into account the full cost of every product that we make. That includes the price we get from the factory. That includes consigned materials. That includes decorative tooling, things, for example, that are not long range tooling. Although that is factored in, it's factored in a little bit differently. The tooling we all think of when we think of making a locomotive, the big steel molds, that's a capital expense. It's a one and done, more or less, and we expect to make multiple runs out of that same tooling. There's also things like decorative tooling for the cliches and paint masks, decals, that go into every locomotive. So while every train master comes out of the same set of tools, every one of those paint schemes, every one of those road numbers has its own set of decorative tooling. And that can be expensive as well. We pride ourselves on having certainly some of the most complicated deco in the industry on most of our products, and there's a cost associated with that. We also have to factor in things like licensing and royalties for all of our licensed products. Again, something I can't talk about all the specific percentages and so forth, but there's a lot that goes in there. We have to weigh in shipping costs. Shipping costs over the past few years have swung wildly, and we use sort of an annual average that we see. But coming through COVID and out of COVID, we saw containers one year go from about $5,000 to $6,000 a can, upwards of $18,000 a can, and when that's full of of train sets, that can those costs add up quickly. So we have to look at all those fixed costs that are going into the model. We have our dealer channel and our distributors. We have to factor in their discount and their pricing. They need room to make their profit as well. So we have a strong dealer network out there that we can all enjoy and go to, not just for pre-ordering the big items once or twice a year out of a catalog, but for when you need track, or you need some paints, or you need scenery supplies. We need those guys there and healthy, and so we include that in all of our calculations. And then, yes, there is a line in there for what seems to sometimes be called an evil word of profit. But that profit is our company salary, our building, our overhead is included in that number, in that margin, as well as a little bit of a return on investment for our investors and our owners. All of those things have to be factored into it. We have a target that we set for every product. Not all targets are the same. A high price locomotive, for example, actually gets sold at typically a lower profit margin than, say, a piece of 10-inch straight track, because one is $10 to $20 and one is $1,000 to $2,000, right? So while the percentage is smaller, you make it up. Every one of those we have to sell a lot more straight track to get to that same dollar point. Those formulae have not really changed since I came to the company and started doing this part of the work over 10 years ago now, down here in North Carolina. What has changed in those 10 years are the costs that go into that bulk of that equation, which is the ultimate product cost. We've seen shipping go up. We've seen electronics go way up. We've seen parts and labor and raw materials go up. And even as one of the biggest players in the model railroading space, we are not a big player by any stretch of the imagination in the global materials or labor market equation. And so we ride that wave just like everybody listening to this call does. And every project goes through that same process and the same evaluation. We also look at everyone in the catalog and go, how do we get this? Is there a way we can get this price down? If we're teetering at a price point where, where we're at, let's say, arbitrary numbers here, you're at $114.99. All right, how do we get this thing to $99.99? right? Like, how do you psychologically you want to get that out of there, but that can be a pretty big lift on some items. We all sit around the table not looking for how do we get more money out of it, how do we make the product more expensive, but how do we build value into the product, and how do we keep the prices as reasonable as we can. We don't like the price increases any more than you. We know that if the trains are cheaper, more people can buy them. As we just talked about with Battery O, that's a big part of our corporate mission, and how do we keep those options available. And as electric train sets go, there's only so much we can do to take the cost of the current electric Polar Express set, for example, down. We're never going to make that train set half the price that it is today, let alone down to $150 retail. So bigger things had to change to make that price jump doable. Why do some products look like they've increased more than others? Some of that is, as you mentioned already in your assessment of it. Some things are harder to build than others. Some things have components in them that others don't have. And there can be other factors too. Sometimes if it's a repeat item, sometimes the last time we've made it, since we've made it the last time, or maybe the last time we had produced it, things crept in and we ended up taking a shorter margin on it than we had planned. And when you go back and revisit it 5-10 years later, there's a little bit of sticker shock there. So those things happen as well. Probably more variables in that than we would ever have time to sit down and talk about. Know that it's not our company's goal, or I don't think any company's goal in this space, to make the trains as expensive as we can and see if you guys will pay it. It seems like that's sort of a reaction to things. That's not our goal. We know that this is a luxury item. Model trains are a luxury item. For those of us who are in the hobby, they don't feel like a luxury. They feel like life. I need my trains, like I need my eggs for breakfast, or it feels one and the same, but it's not. And pricing discussions like this are not new. I've been having this conversation with people since the day I started with Lionel in social media and seeing that trend. It was happening long before then, as we mentioned. You look at the early Lionel trains, some of the most collectible ones today from those early pre-war years. Why are they collectible? They're collectible because we didn't make a lot of them. We didn't make a lot of them because most people couldn't afford them. Those state sets and things like that we still drool over to this day were very much a luxury item. By comparison, the Lionel catalog that we're putting out here in 2025, we really made an effort to hit something for just about every interest we possibly could in the pages of a catalog, whether it's a relatively, I have to say relatively, because for some of us, an $80 Thomas battery set is also a luxury for a lot of people in this country right now. But we go from that all the way up to $1,800 steam locomotives. And certainly we've pushed past that price point many a time. We recognize that not everybody can afford everything they want out of every catalog. That's nothing new. But we do everything we can to try and keep prices as tight as we can, as low as we can, so that you all can enjoy the hobby and keep us going for many, many more years to come. There's no crazy backroom negotiations of how we come up with it. We get the cost. The project managers and I, we run the numbers into our margin analysis. If the quote we get and the price we hope to hit at hits the numbers that are expected for that category, great. If they come in too low, we look at how do we either get the cost down or can we take the price up. Sometimes we get a price that comes in lower than we expected, and we're more than happy to lower the price a little bit and pass that on. That doesn't happen nearly as often as we'd like, but it does occasionally happen. I think the F-19s last year were probably a really good example of an engine that I thought putting in the catalog was going to have to be put in at a much higher price point, probably another $200 over what we priced it at, just based off of other comps that I had seen. But the unit price in the factory came in really nice on that one, and we took advantage of it and passed that right along to all of you guys. Probably one of the better values in the catalog over the last 2 years. But it was an easier one for the factory to work on. They were able to give us that price, and we took it. So we're always happy to pass the savings along too when we get them. The question sort of crept in there about tariffs. I can only answer it to say that I really don't have an answer. I don't think any of us do. Anything I could tell you on what might happen next year or even over the next 24 hours in this current news cycle would be complete conjecture. I will say that we did not factor any potential outcomes or scenarios into this pricing. That could have just as easily provided us charging you excess fees that we didn't need to charge and making prices higher than necessary, which would have only compromised sales. So we went with the numbers we had, like we always do. If, and it's a big if, the tariffs come to pass, it's a decision that we, like every other business in the United States impacted, we're going to have to look at it and see what we have to do. And my bosses have been very clear that all options will be on the table when that happens, including price increases. I don't want to fearmonger anybody into thinking that's coming. I also don't want to sugarcoat it and say that I don't think anything will happen. I have no idea. But until we know what's going to happen, there's no way to tell you what we're going to do in response to it. So there's really not much to be gained from speculation there. We will ride the storm along with everybody else and see where we end up.
Greatly appreciate the transparency in answering that question, Ryan. It was one of the most asked questions in our community, and definitely one that has been highly debated on YouTube right now, and on Instagram, on Facebook, every social media platform possible. And it is a hard question to answer, and it's a hard conversation we have. We often forget that there's a lot more that goes into this, because we see this as a leisure hobby, and it's hard to think about the business aspect and other things that you guys might have to face there too. And I think it's important to know both sides of the story here. So I really appreciate you taking that question on like a champ and giving us complete transparency. That I really appreciate that.
There will always be things I cannot say. There will sometimes be things I choose not to say. But if you hear me saying it, I'm not going to outright lie to anybody. I hope that everyone will understand that from me as a person, but also us as a brand and Lionel. We have no intention of being deceptive. And I've always held that honesty is your best way to breeding understanding. You may not always like the answers we give, but I'm going to give you the most honest answer I can. And that's the current standards of how we do our pricing. It's how we've done our pricing for years, and it's how we're going to continue to do our pricing. We'll have to adjust the variables as they come. Now we'll just wait and see what the next variables might be.
I think that's perfectly fair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to our last few questions here, and these are kind of more general, broad ones. But Sid, do you want to tackle the next one?
Sure. And so the topic is the Vision line. It's Lionel's staple product, their top of the line models, and I just have to say that I love the Vision line. And originally it was a very small knit of items that you made every couple years, and I think it's definitely easy for the hobbyists to get distracted how things are done now. It's not a bad thing. The fact that there is not only brand new Vision line products, but reruns and then extensions into rolling stock means there's something for everybody. And so I love that about the Vision line. And so I think it's easy for people to get distracted, and people have maybe forgot what it's all about. And so many unique and innovative features have been developed and released in models over the years with the Vision line, and then subsequently into just standard legacy models like Whistle Steam and Swinging Bells, and several other features. And so considering that it's Lionel's 125th anniversary, what's the current expectation for Vision line products? and what's the plan for Vision Line moving forward. It kind of just almost just re-explaining what Vision Line is about, and maybe is there any changes to be made in the future.
Yeah, I think this comes back to a little bit like what we talked about with the Vanderbilt and
Yeah.
what made that Vision Line, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think, as I explained earlier, not to go back over it all,
Yeah.
this was sort of the intervening year of that, and it's a pattern we've gone through, and it's a question that pops up every time we do a reissue.
Yeah.
This is not what Vision Line is supposed to be.
Yeah.
On the other hand, one of the great things that to me that we are doing these reissues should show everybody is that the hobby is not dying as quickly as everybody proclaims it to be.
Yeah.
We are selling these things in good numbers because there are a lot of people who were not in the hobby 10 years ago to get the locomotive the last time it was issued.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're seeing these things come back is not a sign of us losing our way, but us as a way of going back and giving people who missed their things the first time around quite some time ago a new opportunity to get it once again.
Yeah.
That being said, Vision Line as a brand within our brand continues to be held up as the high regards of pushing the envelope with new features, new innovation, the best that we can do in the model train industry. What sets us? What can we do that sets Lionel apart from the rest of the pack? That is still its place within the company. It's still what we strive for the line, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon. I will say you will see an all new Vision Line locomotive before the year is over. That will not be recycled tooling. That will have not been issued before, and that will have a feature that we have not done before. That's about as much as I can say on it at this point in time. Although to tie back into the other previous question, I will say this is a smaller and relatively speaking less expensive Vision Line locomotive than we have done on average as well. Again, as a nod to those who love the newness but don't have 072 curves.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it might be one you want to buy 6 or 7 of, so you can still do that. But there will be new Vision with new features announced before the end of the year on our regular 2-year rotation. So very much looking forward to that, and I think people will, as always, be excited to see what's coming up next.
You've definitely just piqued lots of people's interest and curiosity with that.
Absolutely.
But something else that I think is maybe just for additional clarification is when an old product line Lionel had was the JLC line, the Joshua Lionel Collin, and at the time the tech was very standardized throughout the Lionel line. You had Legacy and TMCC, and those models weren't so much about the technology, but the detailing and being the best looking models and the tooling overall. And I think I'm sort of just saying this to give some perspective to some people, is that like with the new Hudsons, yes, it's a rerun of the Hudson, but you guys are making it more like a J1E. You're not framing it as a 700E. That was one of the sort of hindering factors with a lot of Hudsons early on in the scale realm of Lionel's. It was kind of hindered by the 700E, the frame, the detailing. And so I think it's always good to just mention to people that it's not just the features, it's also the model itself and the way it looks, whether it be a brand new model that has never been made or making the best version of a model. I think the Big Boy is the greatest example of that. There have been plenty of Big Boys made in 3-rail prior, but the Lionel Vision Line Big Boy is hands down the best O-scale Big Boy you can buy. Lots of people have told me that. I believe that. And so, I'm just providing some people with, a little bit of just perspective, at least from, my take, and a lot of my fellow co-hosts probably agree. And so, I just wanted to mention that it's not just about the features, but additionally the way the model looks and the details.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Quickly, maybe while we're on the topic, one of the features I've always liked of the Vision Line is the cylinder steam, whether it be like the S3 or the the Texan, where it's just on off, or you got the reciprocating cylinder steam with the GS? Is there a chance to see that come back?
Always a chance to see that come back. Yeah, it's not it's one of the more challenging ones to build, but it definitely has a future.
Sweet.
That is a really cool feature. As a person who does not run smoke because of weathering, I have one of the from the Vision Stock Express. I have that GS that's been weathered, and it unfortunately doesn't. I don't get the chance to really smoke that one out very often because of the weathering. But I loved that feature so much. I bought the Fantasy Lark Scheme one just so I had an engine I can enjoy that feature on. It is so nice.
Looking for something different? Need a gift for a fellow rail fan? Well, folks, look no further. NPL Customs is your source for all railroading decor. Handcrafted, made in the USA, and veteran-owned. Their products made for rail fans by rail fans. I personally have a set of coasters from them that I absolutely love. Find them on Etsy at NPL Customs and use code MMPodcast at checkout to save 10%. NPL Customs, quality since 2017.
Similar to the Vision line, we've seen lots of growth and change in both the scale and semi-scale offerings from Lionel in the past few years. The traditional semi-scale line has experienced major growth and a growing focus as time has gone on. We've also seen success from displaying at Comic-Con and other conventions when it comes to bringing newcomers to the hobby. What's Lionel's plan moving forward when it comes to the semi-scale offerings and even scale, and will there be a focus on expanding to those other realms?
That's a long way of asking, I guess. Where are we going? Do we like the scale stuff better, or the smaller stuff better? The truth is, we like it all, and we see a place for all of these things in the line going forward. There are different customers for different product lines. The trick and challenge of finding the right balance between them all within the tooling budget and the time that we have available to dump into every project. It's a challenge all the time. Just what do we focus more on within the team, the project management team? We have managers that focus on different segments of the line. As you know, I'm more the scale guy, but Megan, Corey, Tracy are doing great things in the semi-scale and traditional lines. Again, also, you'll see us in HO and things like that as well. Again, similar thoughts going on. There are multiple niches within this hobby. It's one of the things that makes it kind of cool is that we're not all into the same thing. And so we try and put a catalog out that will appeal to everybody. We don't expect everybody to love every single item you see in the catalog. We hope that you all find that one thing, or maybe two or three things that really speaks to you. Usually after the C2 catalog comes out, we hear a lot more from the traditional guys that all we do is scale stuff. And then usually after the C1 catalog comes out, the scale guys say there's way too much traditional stuff in this catalog. It's not like the last one. I think memories are short. That's sort of the typical flow of our two catalogs a year.
Yeah.
Is that volume 2 tends to be, probably about 80% scale, and volume 1 tends to be maybe 40% scale, 60% traditional. In that regards, nothing really has changed there. If you look in this catalog, you see things again all across there. Battery O, probably the easiest example to point to, but plenty of new items, new licenses, new things being tried all the time in the traditional world. And in the scale world, some of that even bleeds up. Things like the Acme cars and things like that were a lot of fun to do for the scale guys. It's okay to have a little bit of fun outside the rivet counting now and then. From a tooling perspective, because things aren't as locked in the traditional world, we can get away with a lot more without tooling everything new all the time for traditional cars. On the other hand, we do spend a significant amount more in licensing and tooling things like sculpts for figures and that sort of thing along those lines. So we see Lionel continuing to be a company that means different things to different people, but one that we hope means something special to everybody.
It's good to know that Lionel is open to not just the like you said, the rivet counters, but they want to try and appeal to everybody because like you said earlier, this hobby isn't dying, and bringing more people in will keep it alive and even more thriving than it already is. But I believe Matt has something to talk a little bit about.
I do. Probably the most excited thing in this catalog for myself. As somebody growing up, was born in the 70s, I absolutely just love Star Wars. And when you can take my favorite hobby and my other favorite hobby and merge them into one item, this is like a dream come true. And the funny thing is, I remember like from our first catalog shows with when it was just Matt and I think every time we hit the Lion Chief section, I think I always like harassed Ryan about like, hey, when are we gonna see the Star Wars stuff? But we don't have to go too deep into this. I just want to say this is freaking awesome. I'm excited. I'm getting the Empire set for sure. And I think this is probably a catalyst. I think there's going to be a lot more cool stuff coming down the road, as the Skywalker is the limit with this Star Wars stuff.
Oh, that was painfully bad there.
You're fired.
Yes, your dad joke humor is spot on, but so is your assessment. The Star Wars offerings this time are truly the very beginning of what we hope to be a very long story. Megan was not able to join me tonight. We didn't have her here, but that's one of her pride and joys. This is the first year with a new license, and so it's always a fun thing as we get to know each other and know the product and what we can and can't get away with sometimes within the licensing regulations and guidelines. They are very excited working with us. I think you're going to see even more new and fun and innovative and different things to come over the catalogs ahead. But yes, we're just getting started with Star Wars and several of our other licenses as well. We're always on the lookout for the next big thing too. So for those who love the sci-fi and who love those strains, fear not. There's plenty more coming from where that came from. We're only getting started there. If it's any indication, Megan's also our Halloween guru, and you see where that line has gone over the past 5 years or so since we brought her into the product fold. I think you'll see that same passion get applied onto Star Wars as well, and all of our licenses. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we do with it down the line.
All right. The only thing I have to say is, may the Force coupler be with you. So.
We call him Dadford for a reason.
Oh my gosh!
I didn't think you could. But you
wow.
Want to support your favorite O-Scale podcast and rock some awesome merch? Well, now you can. We've teamed up with Redbubble.com and have come up with a great selection of gear that you can get right now. They have everything from shirts, hoodies, stickers, mugs, bags, you name it. Heck, you can even get a wall clock with us on it. All this great stuff and more at Redbubble.com. Links are down in the show notes, so grab yourself some gear and rock some awesome podcast merch.
Let's swiftly move on to one of our last kind of big general question. We have one more after this, and then we're basically done here. I'm going to split this into a two-parter, and then John, if you want to take the second half, you are more welcome to go ahead and do so. But the biggest point of discussion when it comes especially to the younger crowd around the 20s, 30s age range is sounds. There's such a big push for accuracy and realism. And one of the most common questions we get and that we discuss is there a possibility of seeing more recordings of real life whistles, horns, bells, prime movers. And like I said, they're the younger generation that is currently coming back to the hobby and wanting to replicate what they see there. They've been searching out other products that are available on the market. Sid and I have been really invested into Blue Nami, and our community has embraced it, and is to the point where Blue Nami is now considered one of the standard 3 of the upgrades of Legacy, TMCC, DCS, and then now Blue Nami. Is there going to be with like we discussed earlier with price increases and consumers being more cautious, would it be possible to see more realistic sounds? Because it would we think it'd be a good way to increase value without having to beg you guys to make 10,000 different toolings, because it gives the folks who are buying or wanting to buy the new reissues something extra to entice them to buy the new release. So is there a potential for more recordings in the future?
It's a really timely question. Literally today, this afternoon, one of the last things I did before I left the office, I got called down to the engineering room because Tracy had just finished the first round of mastering for the new sounds that are going into the ET44s, which will be out later this year. Tracy and I went up to work with CSX. We went to a yard about maybe almost 2 months ago now, early December, and had the opportunity to spend a day with an ET44 and the crew there, taking it through all the notches, startups, shutdowns, some new radio chatter, all the little background noises we could get. Every little thing Tracy could record, we did. It was a great trip. Huge thank you to CSX corporately for letting us do it, and for the team at the yard and all their help and time to walk us through everything and help us do that. It was a great day, and I will tell you, it was worth it from a sound recording perspective. Our ET44 sounds absolutely nothing like our ES44. So for people who have those on order, not only will you see new light features and an all new tooling, you will have some great new sound sets in there as well. It'll be a very nice change of pace. Would we like to do more of that? Absolutely, we'd like to do more of that, and get out and get new recordings and not just individual whistles and bells and things of that nature, but more voice recordings in the office for the crew talk, more prime mover sounds, more complete packages. The challenge for us is, while you're right, it doesn't cost tooling dollars to put a different sound file in an engine. It definitely does cost engineering time and dollars. Not just the day to go out and do the recording, but then the several months of work behind the scenes in his sound studio, balancing everything, tweaking things, getting it all to sound right in the speakers that we use in our models and so forth. So there is still a very significant time and development cost in putting new sounds in our locomotives. It's something we remain committed to. It's something we will continue to do every time the opportunity presents itself. We already have some trips planned for later this year to get some additional new locomotive sounds and work with some folks on upcoming projects. So the short answer is yes. The longer business answer is yes, as quickly and as affordably as we can to cram it all in there.
That's a very good way of putting it. And I know all the diesel guys, the modern diesel guys, are going to be ecstatic to hear that news. But yeah, I'm super glad to hear it. I've mentioned this in our show many a times, but I think your Russian decapods came out fantastic. As a person who owns and has visited 1630 as a Chicago local, being able to hear those sounds coming out of that engine brings it to a completely different level. That makes me really like that engine, and why Matt R is very excited to own it. So the more of that we can see from you guys, budget and time permitting, we'd love to see it, because sounds are what make Lionel Legacy premium to a lot of people, myself included. So anything that can bring it to that next level and is something new we haven't seen before, it makes us, it becomes the main talking point of our community for at least a couple weeks. So when those engines arrive. So we love seeing that. Throwing it over to John. Do you want to take the second half of this question?
Yes, thank you very much, Johnny. A topic that is near and dear to me personally. One part I love about engines is the crew talk, and we've had some discussion in our Discord and everything. Is there any chance we'll get new crew talk or possibly some road specific or even like just region specific crew talk to standard legacy engines? Might trickle down through the pipeline. Some specific stuff like a Midwestern accent for anything like Milwaukee Road or CNW. Obviously, we have a lot of Canadian National and Canadian Pacific and even CPKC, the new one, getting some Canadian accents. And then I know we've discussed it before on the podcast here, but some Spanish stuff for Ferromex. If you guys plan on doing any more Nacionales de Mexico or even possible French for, like Quebec. And even, getting as obscure as like, Cajun stuff for some of the southern roads, any kind of things like that. Anything kind of in mind for the future?
Sort of same answer as with recording locomotive prototypes. We have to record the voice actors to get the sounds. The way our sounds are set up for our crew dialogue in Crew Talk in Legacy is it actually sort of pieces together multiple phrases to put together complete chatter with a variety of randomization algorithms and things that engineers talk about that my eyes glaze over with. So what we do there, a typical sound recording for us for a full Legacy Crew Talk takes about 2 hours in the sound studio, 2 to 3 hours for someone to sit down and read through the script of all of the lines. We've done quite a bit of that actually in the office. Several of us have recorded to add in there. We've had some volunteers from some of our local railroads. Actually, one of the engineers, crew members we worked with at CSX when we were doing the sounds there, we extended him the invitation anytime he was down in the Charlotte area if he wanted to come in and do a sound recording. We'd love to have him. So again, especially when we have somebody with a little bit of a different accent, a little bit of a different voice, we try and incorporate that in there. Certainly, like with the other sounds, it's one of those things we'd love to incorporate. We'd love to do more of it. It's a matter of the timing and the resources to go out and not just get it, but then piece it all together.
Completely understandable, and very much looking forward to that. If you want a Midwestern accent, you want to borrow Rochford, we'll promise he won't tell dad jokes.
I can't promise that.
I was going to say, you can't promise that in any capacity.
One thing I will say, we've tried occasionally to do things remotely, and to get the quality of the sound we really prefer to have the person in person in the office. It makes the sound recording go that much more smoothly. Even if we're just going to garble you up and make you sound like you're talking over a radio anyway, it's still better to start with a live voice in studio. And so that's something that weighs into that a little bit too. So it's not just calling somebody in Milwaukee and having them read Crew Talk. It's getting somebody from Milwaukee to Charlotte to have them read Crew Talk to really have the same impact.
I know there's a lot of logistics that go into, coordinating with somebody. This is probably a slight stretch, but I bet you there are a lot of people who probably would make the trip. I can probably mention a bunch of people from the Detroit area who would definitely make the trip for something like that. There's obviously more that goes into, just come down and, do this. There's a lot that goes into that, but it would definitely be cool if, more stuff is in the pipeline, but yeah.
I'd be happy to loan out my horrible impressions to you.
And kind of to round things off here, our final question, actually, ironically enough, isn't to do anything with O scale, but back to HO. Matt R, did you want to finish up the last question for us here today?
Certainly can. Yes, sir. All right. Back on HO, does Lionel still have the tooling for some of the stuff they've offered in the past, such as the Big Boy, the Challenger, the GTEL series locomotive? Are they planning on offering them again? Maybe? Question mark.
I do not believe that we still have the tooling from the Challenger and the GTEL. If we did or do, I still wouldn't use it. And let me just explain why. I think these came out in 2002, 2003, 2004, somewhere in that range. And they were absolutely state-of-the-art, world-class models for that day. Looking at the samples I see of them today compared to competitive models in the marketplace right now, I don't think they would hold up from a detail perspective. Also, from a control perspective, we would be starting from ground run too with ESU and everything else. So, to try and resurrect that tooling versus tooling up a new GTEL or Challenger, we would probably end up spending as much to start from scratch as we would to try and reuse those tools. So why not start with a clean slate? Those two in particular we do not own. But as I mentioned earlier, to come back into the bigger picture, we don't expect the current Berkshires and Orcars to be the next Challenger and GTEL. We hope that they are the first of a long and ongoing series of new locomotives and new projects, some of which the HO world hasn't seen before.
Excellent. Excited to hear that.
And that brings us to that was our last question here. Does anybody else want to chime in? Any last questions for Ryan before we wrap up?
Yeah, I got one really quick here. I was just curious on the now that it's been out for a while, feedback on the Base 3, and is there maybe a chance to do a hardware remote at some point?
Feedback so far has been overall good. There were certainly some teething issues early on, especially with the app. We've already hired a new app developer who's done a great job of working through a lot of those things. And of course, with any app-based control system like this, you're going to have ongoing changes all the time. That's just part of the fun of these systems. Overall, seems to be working really well for a lot of people. I've had several tell me that it's all they use. That they once they've got used to the digital app, they sort of put their remotes aside. I've also heard from others who, from my cold dead hands crowd on the cab too. As of right now, development is very much centered around not only tweaking but pushing to the next steps of development in terms of what Cab 3 can do in its current configuration. I will never rule out Lionel going back to or making some sort of handheld again that would incorporate that. Right now, the Cab 1L is our handheld going forward. So if you like a tactile button, that's your current answer. No sooner than we develop a new clip-on to your cell phone will all the cell phones change, I'm sure. So we're just not really in a position to do that development at this time. It doesn't mean it will never happen for those hanging their hopes on such a thing. But Base 3, Cab 3 in general right now, a year in, we're happy with where it is. Recognize there are still opportunities for growth and improvement. But that was one of the reasons we switched to this platform, was that now growth and improvement can happen at a very different pace and a very different manner than it could with the old system and the outdated components that we've been trying to band-aid together for several decades now. So looking like a bright future for Base 3 and Cab 3. If you haven't tried it yet, don't know what you're waiting for, give it a shot, see how you like it, and have fun with them.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions from anybody else before we finish up?
Nope, nothing from me.
I'm good.
All right. Well, before I throw it over to John to take us on home, Ryan, thank you as always for joining us on the show. I know this has been a bit of a long show, as all of our shows are, but I appreciate you being transparent with us, answering all of our questions. And even though if we're putting it with this one in particular, we normally try to not make this feel like 60 minutes and ask very tough questions, but we appreciate you taking time to answer and do it and handle it like a champ. We really appreciate it.
Well, that's not a problem at all. Actually, I mean, it's still early here by our standards. I still have 16% battery life left on my computer, so we're doing pretty good for tonight. And as far as the questions go, no problem at all. I'm happy to come on, and whether it's here or at a train show or wherever, we're used to answering the questions. Like I said, I know I'm not always going to give you the answer you wanted, but I'm going to give you the answer that I can. And actually, I like this format a little bit more than going just through page by page through the catalog again. I think this gets us to the heart of the matter and what people want to know and are curious about, and that in and of itself is really good feedback for me and for all of us at Lionel to have. Is, you know, what are people really asking and what are they curious about, and that's a lot easier to do like this than just going from page 76 to 77 to 78 to 79. So it's an enjoyable evening.
Glad to hear it. All right, John, take us home, man.
Absolutely. Ryan, I can echo our sentiments of the co-hosts here. Fantastic show tonight. Thank you as always for being with us. This is the part where we gush exorbitantly about you. But thank you so much again. And as always, we like to promote our guests and everybody here. So Ryan, where can folks find you, Lionel, and talk to you guys about your fantastic products?
Go to Lionel.com for all of your catalog and product questions. If you have things that aren't answered there, please use our amazing customer service team at 1-800-4Lionel or talk to us at Lionel.com. They're a great resource. They know a lot more than people give them credit for, I think. Start with them. They'll be happy to answer your questions, point you in the right direction. And of course, on social media, just type Lionel Trains into whatever fun app you're using that hasn't been outlawed yet.
Love it. Fantastic.
Was that too political for the show tonight?
No, that's funny. I like that.
That was great.
That's great.
I love it. We're relatable. Alrighty. And guys, thank you so much. Johnny, where can folks find you?
You can find me on YouTube at Audamus. That's Audamus. I have recently made a video, I say recently in the last couple of weeks, since our show with Norm, where I showed off how you can use a Gunrunner John MP3 board to add some ambient sounds to your layout. So I added one to my Switch Tower, and then I also showcased some fun new items I got over the last couple of months, and all of them somehow turned out to be all in Union Pacific, so I don't know how that happened. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at the same name of Audamus_trains, where I post a lot more frequently than I do on my YouTube channel. And last but not least, you can find me on the Miniature Models Podcast Community Discord, where I am reading and responding to all of your posts, where you all ping me 8,000 times for the Daylight S2, and also making a fool of myself on the voice chat. So come on down, it's lots of fun.
Fantastic. Sorry, hold on one sec. I gotta ping my buddy Johnny real quick. His Daylight thing that they
Oh
made.
my god. Oh
okay, I'm
my
done. Sorry. Oh my gosh. Matt Arv, where can folks find you, sir?
Yes, sir. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram as WC Model Railroad. I'm starting to post a lot more on there. You're going to see a whole lot more stuff here in the next couple of weeks. Not something you'll think it will be on there, but something new and surprising for sure. I'm also on the Discord server, hiding in the server room where it's like 150 degrees, but I'm trying to make sure everything stays up and working so people can have lightful discussions on the Discord server.
We don't let him out very often.
Nope.
He's fine. He's good. He loves it in there.
Right, it's where I come up with all my dad puns. So
Maybe we should let him out more often.
Oh, good stuff. Matt Z, where can folks find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Matt-Trainlover9943, YouTube, Facebook when I remember to use it, Instagram, Mats.hobbies, and like Johnny said, on the Discord. And Ryan, big thank you for coming on tonight. I really had a great time. After this, I'm about to turn up some Springsteen, you know. Can't be a show without Ryan without mentioning Springsteen, so got to do it.
I love it. That was from the turn the page thing earlier, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. You got that
see?
right.
I knew he was going to think of it. I was waiting for you. Oh my gosh. Sid, where can folks find you, sir?
You can find me on YouTube. My YouTube channel is Sid's Trains. I also made a video recently after a long break. It's on some layout progress, so definitely check that out. You can find me on Instagram under Sydney's Trains, and then I'm also on the podcast Discord server under Sid's Trains.
Love it. And you folks can find me, John S., at RetroMikado96 on Instagram and RetroMikado on YouTube. I've also got a long-awaited layout video in the works planned here, so hopefully we'll get that out before the end of the next year here. We'll see what happens. And as also with my co-hosts as well, again, in addition to, I am also in our podcast Discord server. It is a fantastic place. If you're listening to the show here, why are you not a member yet? We got the link down in the show notes. And also be sure to check out some of our other places, our podcast Discord, our shop, then our Trains affiliate link, and also the the podcast Instagram account where we have some fantastic, unique content there as well. So if you guys aren't following yet, why haven't you yet? It's a great place to be. Ryan, I'm going to echo everyone's sentiments again. Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. We always have fun with you doing this show here. And yeah, I think that's going to wrap everything up. We got the station coming up here, and we are going to all hop off. Guys, thank you so much for tonight.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.